late, Hank, 'cause you got to report down the car wash first thing in the morning. I talked some sense into Khan's head, and now I'm majority owner.
My new employee. Better punch in early.
Despite his reluctance, however, Hank has unshakable faith in Buck, so he sucks it up and reports in.
When you're done emptying garbage, you go get me mango smoothie.
That is not part of the job.
That's how you do, Hank. Good response.
See what slow and steady get you, Hank Hill? Working for me.
I mean, he's not wrong. Dedicate yourself long enough to any job and you can easily wind up working with or for someone awful. You can't just perpetuate that someone keep working no matter what. There needs to be a line.
Now clean up my gold mine, monkey.
Well, that would have been it for me. Buck would have gotten a phone call about my insubordination because there is no way I would have done anything after being called that. Now, some people might be tempted to call Hank a hypocrite considering how he made Bobby work for a bad boss without question, while in this episode, he's very defiant of Khan. But I don't think that's the case. For one, this is season 10 and that episode happened in season 2. Hank's had a lot of time to build character. Second, Bobby's situation wasn't that Hank didn't believe in bad bosses. It was that he didn't think Bobby could properly identify a bad boss since Bobby was known for having an unreliable work perspective. Hank's negative attitude towards Khan comes from the fact that he knows him and thus he knows he would not make a good boss. Hank does what Hank does and works his butt off to get Scrubbies back into top shape. Thanks to that, Khan and Min are once again living the good life.
This martini is good, but maybe it would taste better if stirred by Hank Hill.
And I can make that happen.
You see what I mean about Khan's character? Min too, actually. What happened to y'all that y'all just feel the need to be evil? Do neither of y'all remember all the times Hank helped y'all out? The Mexico incident, aisle 8A? Shoot, Redneck on Rainy Street was only 2 seasons ago. After Khan makes up his own motto that sounds a lot like Dr. Money, Min gets an idea.
Why don't we sell how-to videos? We're Asian. We own a camera.
Oh man, it's what everyone says right before they decide to try YouTubing. Khan and Min begin filming a commercial with Khan. It's what
Asian. We own a camera. Why don't we sell how-to videos? We're Asian. We own a camera.
Oh man, it's what everyone says right before they decide to try YouTubing. Khan and Min begin filming a commercial, with Khan now being Dr. Quarters. Bruh, you are gonna get sued so hard. This new venture makes Hank's already difficult job even more difficult as Khan decides to shoot and advertise at Scrubbies. Hank's frustration continues to build, not only from Khan's actions, but from also being ignored by Buck.
The place looks great, Hank. Con really seems to be getting the best out of you.
Shut up, Dale.
And we've lost the non-annoying camaraderie I was loving. Thanks, Khan. With all these frustrations happening to Hank, and Khan continue to make things even more difficult by selling his video on the property, Hank is reaching his wit's end.
Con, I have worked real hard to get the customers back here. Don't drive them away. Just go look at your catalogs or whatever you do in that office and let me do my job.
Khan, you've got a turnkey business. It's bringing in money. Your one employee, who is a shining star of a worker, is telling you to go relax while he does all the work. Please, I'm begging you, just chill out, man.
Empty your pockets.
I'm not gonna empty my pockets.
Something to hide, huh?
Okay, you deserve what's coming. Hank, despite lasting longer than most people, has finally had enough.
Приветствую каждую душу. И 13 ноября в 19:00 я снова проведу эфир на тему осознанность в процессе самопознания. Это прежде всего, как по мне, мое личное мнение, через опыт которого я прошла, это состояние, когда твоя чувственность, она
стрелки я вчетвером не меньше вашего, если вы вообще бескумны, что вызывает большие вопросы. В рубрику «Имбецилы» я не включил Надежду Громоздкую. То есть нас не харизма Надежды Громоздкой. Надя Громоздкая без виата, без того обеянного легендного состава. У нас все глаз.
Приветствую вас, дорогие мои мужи. Я хотела бы немного рассказать о том, что меня привело к дикому внедрению и раскрытию своих экстрасенсорных способностей. Еще будучи ребенком, высшие силы давали мне определенные не просто знакомство, это было вспоминание, для чего ты здесь. Это знакомство с другими цивилизациями. То есть на физическом уровне, в буквальном смысле, когда в какой-то момент вот по щелчку в тебя входит сущность, ты чувствуешь, что это ты ее не боишься, ты начинаешь говорить на другом языке, ты начинаешь вещать какие-то мысли, какие-то знания, какие-то события, сновидения, ясновидение, яснознание, ясночувствование набирало обороты. Я почувствовала присутствие какой-то внутренней силы. Приветствую вас, дорогие мои. Я хотела бы немного рассказать о том, что меня привело к активному внедрению, раскрытию своих экстрасенсорных способностей. Еще будучи ребенком, высшие силы давали мне определенный другом языке. Ты начинаешь вещать какие-то мысли, какие-то знания, какие. Приветствую вас, дорогие мои души. 7 ноября в 19:00 я проведу свой первый прямой эфир в аккаунте Miraculum Watch. Тема, которую я затрону, экстрасенсорика. Когда и как она появилась в моей жизни, как влияла на эту жизнь и как стала верным союзником на пути к эволюции сознания, к эволюции души, к эволюции самой жизни. И, конечно же, поле любви, которое мы вместе с вами создадим и будем обмениваться нашими душевными состояниями. Видеорубрика называется «Разговоры по душам». До встречи, дорогие мои. И, конечно, если у вас будут возникать какие-то вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите под этим видео. Приветствую вас, дорогие мои души. 7 ноября в 19:00 я проведу свой первый прямой эфир в аккаунте Miraculum Watch. Тема, которую я затрону, экстрасенсорика. Когда и как она появилась в моей жизни, как влияла на эту жизнь и как стала верным союзником на пути к эволюции сознания, к эволюции души, к эволюции самой жизни. И, конечно же, поле любви, которое мы вместе с вами создадим и будем обмениваться нашими душевными состояниями. Видеорубрика называется «Разговоры по душам». До встречи, дорогие мои. И, конечно, если у вас будут возникать какие-то вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите под этим видео.
You can't get me, redneck.
I think the show forgot Khan actually knows how to fight. Maybe that suit is getting in the way.
You gotta learn how to treat your customers and stop calling me your dang monkey.
Leave him alone.
I'm sorry, sir, but I just can't take it anymore.
If I don't know what I'm doing, how come you working for me?
This is somewhat of a good point. A lot of people think Hank would be a great business owner, but I actually disagree. Yes, he does have the skill and customer service to start many different companies, but he doesn't really have business gumption. Hank's more of a family man than he is an opportunist. In the end, Hank puts his foot down. He simply cannot work for Khan. And while he can't do anything about Buck or Khan's business decisions, he can do something about himself.
You know this car wash is part of the Strickland family. You quit it, you're quitting Strickland.
If you say so, sir.
All right, Hank, way to bring home my point in the capitalism video about quitting. As we all know, I'm always right about everything. Yeah, that's a fact. Finally, someone who actually knows how to run a business gives a legit view on success.
Con, a business thrives on customer relations and back-breaking hard work. And that's the guy who gives it to you. Hank is the golden goose.
I don't know if I'd call all labor that goes into a business backbreaking, but yeah, Buck is right. Businesses require work and keeping the customers happy. And if you have employees, that means keeping them happy as well. And shoot, if you can get an employee as efficient and as dedicated as Hank, you better do everything in your power to keep them smiling. Buck recognizes what he's about to lose, so before Hank can leave, Buck offers to send him back to selling propane, along with the approval of the patio he had been asking for.
But what about Scrubbies?
I sell my share. You are now majority owner.
Looks like you work for me. Move it.
So now Khan's doing labor under a boss who doesn't like him. This is symbolic as Hank, who is the hard worker, got what he wanted in the end, while Khan, who took shortcuts, is back to where he started. And that was the year of washing dangerously. It's an alright episode. It's got decent comedy and the overall plot is fine. My biggest problem is that it's another episode where Khan is evil, and those tend to throw me off. Again, he doesn't feel out of character. It's just difficult for me to believe that this Khan is the same one who went through the redneck on Rainy Street. Also, I think the lesson about hard work slightly missed the mark. Khan's problem wasn't that he didn't want to work hard. It was that he had no idea how important relations are in a business. At the very least, however, the final lesson that's taught is a good one. Yes, there are ways to become successful fast and live an easier life. But once that happens, you can't just expect to do whatever you want and have things keep going your way. You have to understand what keeps you in the successful sphere and capitalize on that. Khan had no idea what would keep him on top. He just knew he wanted to be there and look down on those who weren't. Thus, he frustrated his customers, his employees, until finally he frustrated his business partner, which caused his downfall. All in all, this episode was a fun watch with some nitpicky problems to it, and a decent way to end off this trilogy of capitalism. But Shady, what about, let me guess, you really want me to talk about the entrepreneurship episode? Why exactly should I, huh? What's my motivation to go even near an episode about dog poop and vomit? Green pig.
Hey, old man! Dusty old bones full of green dust.
Does that seem funny to any of you?
No, but it is rather catchy.
Hey, hello, how do you do? Shady Directs here. Guys, you'll never guess what's happening. I am reviewing a King of the Hill episode again.
But why? Don't you have enough money? No.
Today we're looking at the episode, no! I don't want to review Hank's Bully. It's an episode so annoying it could rival Miss Wakefield. Why? Why do you intellectuals keep requesting this one?
Because Angry Shady is best Shady.
Right. Angry Shady is best Shady. The episode starts with the Hills spying on their new neighbors. Hank and Peggy want to introduce themselves, but they haven't managed to find the right timing.
How are we supposed to introduce ourselves to the neighbors if they never leave the house?
Well, it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I've been living in my current neighborhood for almost 5 years, and I still don't know anyone's name. I'm an introvert YouTuber. I leave my dark dank dwelling for food and nothing else. Hank laments to the boys how he feels guilty that none of them have welcomed the new neighbors. The boys tell Hank to stop lumping them into his failures.
You haven't met Lila and Jim?
You've met them already?
They're really nice.
Oh, man, just don't take nothing but a goddamn second. I know how to welcome new neighbors, Boomhauer.
I mean, but do you though, Hank? They've been home for 3 weeks straight. What's stopping you from knocking on the door and saying welcome? Hank catches the neighbors pulling into their driveway, giving him and Peggy a chance to finally talk to them. The first 2 minutes of this episode kind of annoy me. Well, I mean, the whole episode annoys me, but this is for a different reason, as the beginning here feels like a waste of time. Technically, it's not, since they establish both that Jim and Lila are new neighbors and the source of Dale's squirrels that he'll use later in the episode, but the problem that's brought up is solved almost immediately. The Hills head over to spend time with their new neighbors.
Mine.
Caleb, that was for our guests.
If I ever snatched anything from my mom and then ate it while she was telling me it wasn't for me, this would have been my dad's reaction.
So you have chosen death.
This is Caleb. You might have noticed that he's very energetic and just got away with being a brat without even getting a slap on the wrist. We cut to the Gribble house with Nancy bringing in groceries.
There are dead squirrels sitting on my cottage cheese.
Don't blame me. Blame the city dump. They raise their fees.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to just dump them in the woods somewhere? They're dead animals. Nature has them all over the place. It's not like you're polluting. While cleaning his corpses out of the fridge, Dale sees an ad in the paper.
Hey, I have a lot of dead animals. I'll make a killing stuffing them after I've made a killing killing them.
He goes to show his new project to the boys, but doesn't get the feedback he hoped for.
Dale, we're going to take a 2-minute walk. When we come back, I want those things gone and the cooler sanitized.
However, Peggy comes out and sees potential in Dale's craft.
It just seems like it needs more oomph. There you go. Now there is a story being told about how tasty his little acorn is.
Excuse me, Peggy, that was very creative and competent. Are you feeling okay? Dale realizes that Peggy's creativity is his way of turning his craft into an art and asks for her help with other animals. I suppose this is as good a time as any to say I personally am not particularly fond of taxidermy. I have no problem with killing animals for their meat or fur, but it kind of bothers me that some people would be willing to hunt things just to turn them into trophies. Dale has a slightly different case, since as an exterminator, he has these carcasses sitting around anyway. He's just looking for a way to profit off of them, so I'm not going to get too high on my horse. However, even though I don't like the craft, I appreciate the artistic nature of it. You're using still poses to tell a story, and the creations Peggy make genuinely feel like works of art. The episode continues and we see, holy chicken-filled tacos, where'd he come from? Hank thinks Caleb is there because he's taken an interest in workshop and proceeds to teach him things. Caleb, however, disregards Hank's words and messes around with tools until eventually he makes a mess.
Okay, don't panic. Accidents happen. Let me grab my shop towels.
Notice Hank's immediate reaction. It isn't anger nor blame. Hank understands that Caleb is a kid and treats him as someone who needs guidance rather than discipline, simply telling him what he did wrong and how to fix it. When Caleb continually demonstrates he isn't going to listen to Hank, Hank decides it's best he just leave. Later, we see Hank watering the lawn and he immediately gets nervous when Caleb shows up.
Caleb, no, you don't ride on a lawn, especially when it's wet.
I like nicknames. I got it. Dusty old bones, full of green dust. Dusty old bones, full of green dust.
That has got to be the worst teasing I have ever seen. I mean, it's effective, it gets under Hank's skin, but it makes absolutely no sense. Hank discusses with the boys how Caleb is the worst teaser in the history of teasing when they get to witness it firsthand.
White shirt. How'd you get your shirt so white shirt?
Wow, kid, you are awful at this. The key to good teasing is very similar to good comedy. You need to make a witty observation and... Wait a minute, I'm not finishing that advice. Parents ain't finna sue me for teaching their kids how to misbehave.
Wait, I recognize this. They pick on you, they mess with your stuff. He's a bully. He's your bully, Hank.
I do not have a bully. I'm an adult. Adults can't be bullied by 10-year-old kids.
Clearly, you've never played Xbox Live. We transition over to Dale and Peggy, who believe they have their magnum opus.
Peggy, you're the Hemingway of the taxidermy diorama.
Oh, thanks. And you, Dale, are the Mozart of that suction thingy that removes all the guts.
Honestly, they make a good team. Not just because their skills correlate with each other, but they also have compatible personalities. Also, again, I know nothing about taxidermy, nor do I approve of it, but I feel the artistry going into this particular piece, as well as the story it's telling. Dale thinks their work is so good, he tells Peggy he's going to enter it in the Heimlich County Taxidermy Contest. They head down to put in their entry, but get a nasty surprise.
Before you sign up, why don't you two take a look at last year's winner?
Man, There's more than pipe cleaners holding that sucker together.
Okay, but why did it win first place? Was it just because it's big? I mean, I guess working with bigger animals is more difficult, but should the difficulty of the craft determine its value? I guess I am more impressed when I see something that clearly took time and effort. Still, that thing doesn't tell much of a story, or at least not as much as a story as what Peggy and Dale brought in. All it's saying is, a bear attacks. Maybe if it had like 2 cubs behind it, or a tree of honey in front of it, or something so we could know why it's attacking. Then again, from what I've seen, most taxidermy projects want to show off what they managed to kill. So maybe that's the point. If you know about taxidermy, let me know what those contests value because I'm genuinely curious now. Having told Peggy she's not worthy and putting a challenge in front of her, naturally she wants to step up and demands Dale get her bigger game. Back to Hank, Caleb is playing his version of I'm not touching you. Hank once again informs Caleb of his discomfort, to which Caleb ignores him.
Caleb, this is not proper behavior when 2 adults are trying to speak.
Oh, I'm goodness, finally! I've talked about harassment on this channel before, and one constant gripe I have is that modern media loves to present this topic without understanding how important communication is. You can't just assume the person harassing you understands what they're doing is wrong, because everyone has different boundaries. You have to clearly inform them that you are uncomfortable with their actions. And I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. HR and sensitivity courses will tell you this exact same thing. Hank, on multiple occasions, has made it clear to Caleb that he does not like how he's being treated on his private property and in his personal space, and yet Caleb is doing it anyway. Because of that, Hank is undoubtedly a victim of harassment. Having made multiple fruitless attempts to resolve the situation with just Caleb, Hank is forced to go above him. He tells Jim and Lila about his problems with Caleb's behavior.
Oh, teasing's just his way of showing how much he likes you.
It's more like harassing.
That's just his way of testing you. You know how kids are. He's just so smart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have gotten a brief case of amnesia because I don't remember asking you guys any of that.
The best thing to do when he gets that way is to ignore him.
Well, he's kind of hard to ignore when he's whacking a little red ball right next to your head.
Caleb.
Do y'all hear what these people are saying? They are being told their son is misbehaving, and their response is, well, he has reasons for doing what he's doing. I don't care if he has reasons. He needs to stop. Okay, let me slow down a bit. Yes, it is important to understand why someone does what they do. You guys know I'm all about that empathy. Shoot, I actually believe everything these people say about Caleb. I believe he likes and or respects Hank, and all this misbehaving is just a cry for attention. However, I have for many years now said that the reason for doing something is not necessarily an excuse. Caleb's parents act like because they know why he's harassing Hank, that somehow makes it okay. It doesn't. With that logic, Caleb could do literally anything and it would be okay because it's just him expressing himself. Watch. Hey Jim, Lila, Caleb filmed himself drowning a basket full of puppies, lied and told everyone I did it, and then doxed me so all the angry hate would make its way to my family.
That's just his way of testing you. The best thing to do when he gets that way is to ignore him.
Yeah, well, really hard to ignore him when he's repeatedly stabbing me in the stomach as he laughs demonically about how he'll bring me nothing but agony and woe.
Caleb.
Also, what's with all the baguettes? Are y'all finna make subs or do you just owe Aladdin some money? Hank throws a barbecue to complete all the baguettes. Are y'all finna make subs or do you just owe Aladdin some money? Hank throws a barbecue to complete his welcoming of the new neighbors. Caleb, once again, sees this as an opportunity to mess with Hank.
Caleb, you want a burger?
Pretty sure this is how the Children of the Corn got started.
Give me that hat, old man.
Caleb, please stop grabbing at my hat. Lila, Jim.
Excuse me, Captain Kirk and Vopina, if you don't get your lazy, bad parenting butts over here and take control of your kid, we're gonna have some extra meat on the grill. And no, that is not a euphemism for crying.
Dusty old bones full of green dust.
Oh, look, Lila. Caleb wrote another one of his songs.
I am convinced that this is the origin story of a serial killer. Whether that killer is going to be Hank or Caleb remains to be seen. After the barbecue, Caleb decides to keep poking the bear.
Dance, old man, dance!
Finally, Hank's had all he can stands and he can't stands no more.
You need to learn some manners. Caleb, get off the bike.
There is something very terrifying about the delivery of Hank's line combined with the expression on his face. It feels like if Caleb doesn't comply, there will be no more Caleb.
When you learn a little respect, you'll get this back.
Hank, having stood up for himself, starts to feel good. Unfortunately, that good feeling is very short-lived.
I want my bike back.
Well, you're gonna have to ask nicer than that, Caleb.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, thank goodness the cops. Officers, I didn't want to involve you, but this kid has been trespassing on my property, vandalizing my lawn, and harassing harassing me for days.
Give the boy back his bike.
Right. These are the cops from the plot convenient precinct. The same precinct the Miss Wakefield cops came from. Just like in Miss Wakefield, Hank says out loud what the problem is.
No, you've got it all wrong. I'm the victim here. That kid is out of control and his parents won't do anything about it.
And just like in Miss Wakefield, everyone pretends they didn't hear it and that he's the bad guy.
Officers, could we please have our son's bike back? We really just like to get this behind us.
Yes, sir.
The episode continues and Hank finds he has no choice but to hide in his house. However, Caleb proves that even that isn't a safe place to be.
Wet old man.
Again, that is trespassing, vandalism, and harassment. This time all in one. These are criminal offenses that the cops should be stopping. Shoot, Hank himself should be stopping this, but cops are literally preventing him from defending himself. While purchasing a new door, Hank gets the idea that maybe he can fight fire with fire.
How would you guys like to make $5? All you have to do is put a little scare into a pesky 10-year-old.
For the record, Hank is not against bullying, he's just against being bullied. In fact, when he was young, he was often a bully and proud of it. That's why he's tempted to use teenagers to scare this kid. But he doesn't go through with it since the teens imply they're going to take things too far.
If you can give us a ride to the gas station, we'll take care of the rest.
Just make sure his alarm system at his house is turned off.
Pretty sure whatever those boys were planning cost more than $5. Gotta love when someone's in the job for the love of the craft instead of the money. Speaking of crafts, we see Peggy and Dale waiting for bigger game to come by so they can kill it. Yeah, see, this is the hunting practice I was talking about that I didn't like. Unfortunately, Dale and Peggy can't seem to find anything.
Is that a deer?
No, Dale. That is the picture on the sign again.
Wait, doesn't Dale hunt? And isn't he an expert on animals? Well, actually, Dale's knowledge on animals seems to be very inconsistent. One day he can tell you any and everything about crows. The next day he thinks a hamster is a gerbil.
I'm sorry, Peggy. I'm not worthy to work beside your genius.
Dale, this is not your fault. I put you in a no-win situation.
Seriously, I really enjoy seeing these two interact with each other. Their personality and
Маск гнилоуст, скорее гниломозг, блять. Ну, как бы потрясающе. Очень классно, когда Трамп и, по сути дела, все его окружение повторяет русскую пропаганду. Типа, я не знаю, как вот эту хуйню всю можно отдефать. То есть, ладно, это один Трамп был бы, но а вот эти люди, типа, он их подговорил всех, как бы, чтобы разыграть сценку, чтобы Путина загипнотизировать или что. Ну. Там вот он сегодня говорил, что у русов отключили Старлинки неделю назад, плюс русскованский посол говорит, что встреча делегации РФ и США не запланирована, может, все-таки многоходовочка. И я не вижу, в каком месте это многоходовочка вообще. Ничто на это не указывает. Трамп хуйсос, $1. Привет. Почему Юрий Табак до сих пор защищает Трампа? Ну, он не то, что защищает Трампа, не знаю. Стамбульское соглашение является возможным ориентиром для завершения войны в Украине. Спецпосланник Трампа Витков. Ну, я и говорю, полный пиздец. Ну, что Трампа реально старческий маразм, потому что даже в первом сроке такой хуйни не было. Я думаю, что он мудак просто. Ты готов извиниться перед Шевцовым из-за тейка против зеленского диктатора? Что? Какого хуя я должен, блядь, извиниться? То есть, наоборот, буквально такой же тейк. Ну, буквально тейк Шевцова — это буквально тот же тейк, за который мы сейчас хуесосим Трампа, чтоб ты понял. Типа, опять-таки у тебя что-то вот как-то не сконтачилось у тебя в голове, как-то вот отошел проводок, блядь, да, как-то вот не сложилось, типа, блядь, а на самом деле-то наоборот все, блядь. Дефолтный платформ ID $1. Кстати, Тулси губа кришнаитка. Это что, реально мода какая-то у трампоебов на индусов дрочить? Тупо силовики под индусами, кайф. Охуительно, да, очень классно. Выглядит, как будто у нас страну просто распродают и все. Типа, я не знаю, типа, я уже очень раскрутил у себя антитрамповскую паранойю и истерию в голове. То есть, как бы, и остановить это очень сложно. Зачем тебе извиняться на стриме перед Трампом? Как будто в любом случае правительство... Но это не столько извинения были бы перед Трампом, сколько перед аудиторией, как бы, потому что, ну, типа, я поддерживаю откровенное зародоебство. И если окажется, что Трамп на самом деле готовил, блядь, как бы сюрприз, как бы, я...
Ну, не знаю, ищи.
сеял панику понапрасну, то это скорее, ну, типа, ну, Трампу-то похуй, а свою аудиторию я, получается, дезинформировал, а это как бы проблематично. Я буду до конца верить в Трампа, даже когда буду с шасси самолета падать. Ничего, Украина поднимет Европу с колен, будем с немцами и французами брать Москву, да. Тебя не заебало эту шизофазию зачитывать, блядь, уже 3-й час. Это моя работа. Кстати, до сих пор Трамп регулярно проворачивал такие китки с тарифами, например, из недавнего. У Трампа определенно есть план по урегулированию конфликта. Не факт, что этот план устраивает конкретно Зеленского, но это еще не значит, что он не устроит украинцев. Сейчас остается только ждать, надеяться на лучшее, но и готовиться ты знаешь к чему. А какие китки с тарифами? Где? Кого он кинул? Слушай, а какие к тебе претензии, если ты топишь за зародовскую хуйню, когда ничего не указывает на противоположное? Не, ну мало ли.
You lived on a boat?
Until I was 13, from when I was born, I lived on a 40-foot sailboat.
Who did you live on the boat with?
My mom and my dad. And you want to know the crazy part?
What?
I didn't go anywhere.
What you mean? You just what?
We were docked the entire time almost. I only went to Florida.
Oh, that's so fucked.
Isn't it so fucked?
Did you ever hear your parents?
Oh God.
子供の名前どうしますか?
Kevin.
Kevin.
Or
Sounds like a sociopath.
Elon Musk.
Your parents?
Oh God.
子供の名前どうしますか? Your parents?
Oh God.
子供の名前どうしますか?
Kevin.
どうしますか?
Kevin.
Kevin.
Or
Sounds like a sociopath.
Elon Musk.
So you just went more social. All right. Why were you trapped on a boat?
My parents.
Your dad was in a cult.
Sure, whatever you want to believe. My dad was in the Navy.
In a cult?
Yep. And
Your dad was in a cult?
all right, I'm not gonna admit to that. My entire 13 years of my childhood gone. For what?
You lived on a boat?
Until I was 13.
Cult.
13 years of my childhood gone. For what?
You lived on a boat?
Until I was 13, from when I was born, I lived on a 40-foot sailboat.
Who did you live on the boat with?
My mom and my dad. And you want to know the crazy part?
What?
I didn't go anywhere.
What you mean? You just what?
We were docked the entire time almost. I only went to
Shenanigans go surprisingly well together. Peggy and Dale decide that if they can't go bigger, they'll get more creative. Their entry for the contest is a bunch of small vermin dressed up as the founding fathers. Unfortunately, they get a little too ambitious.
Watch what happens when Ben Franklin's kite gets hit by lightning. For that, I sincerely apologize.
Back to Hank, we see him forced to hang out with Bill and Boomhauer inside his kitchen.
I just don't know what to do about Caleb. I mean, he's a kid and I'm an adult. I can't physically stop him. His parents would have me arrested and they'd have a point.
No, they wouldn't. If a kid is harassing you, in fact, if a kid is breaking any law where you're the victim, you have a right to put an end to it. Most people rely on the parents to deal with it as a courtesy because we don't want to overly punish kids. But since Jim and Lila aren't being parents, you should be allowed to do something. Hank realizes that while it would look bad for him to retaliate, he's had a secret weapon all along.
You want me to do what?
Look, I hate to ask you to fight my battles for me, son, but I have no other choice.
It seems so wrong.
Look, I know it goes against everything I've taught you, Bobby, but I know you can do it.
Actually, that brings up an interesting topic. If you remember my Redneck on Rainy Street video, I said that the key ingredient to having a victim mentality isn't being a victim, nor is it retaliation, but rather believing that your status as a victim justifies immoral acts. Hank is about to have Bobby do something that is normally wrong, but he justifies it using his status as a victim. So that begs the question, does Hank have a victim mentality in this episode? While yes, Hank is resorting to acts that he thinks are immoral, I see this more as a self-defense end of the line type of deal, more than I see it as someone who just wants to have their way and is using victimhood as an excuse to get it. When Caleb first starts messing with him, Hank didn't jump at the chance to do something wrong to fix the problem. Shoot, he didn't even think Caleb had any malice at first and just tried to instruct him. Then, when he saw Caleb was being intentionally antagonistic, Hank made it clear that Caleb was in the wrong. When that didn't work, he went above Caleb and told his parents to control their kid. After that, he non-violently stood up for himself. And when he was punished for doing that, he attempted to inform the police of the situation, who ignored his testimony. Basically, while Hank is justifying a normally wrong act, it was not his instinct to do so. He has, at every possible turn, attempted to solve things in a moral way. It's the same logic I would use if someone punched me in the face. Normally, physically hurting them would be wrong, but I have to defend myself on the same level they've chosen to attack me, especially since they're not backing down. In layman's terms, they started it. But Shady, what about integrity? You said you shouldn't do bad things just because someone else does it first. Yeah, you kind of caught me in a catch-22 here. Hank is indeed giving up some integrity to solve the problem. But here's the thing.
Just say the thing.
While Hank does have an integrity to his morals, he also has a responsibility to stand up for himself. Unfortunately, both of these things are important, but are currently mutually exclusive. Something's gotta give, and Hank chose the integrity part. The man is doing something wrong by his own standards, but this isn't the easy way to get rid of his problem. It's the only way. As much as I like to preach to you guys about morals, remember, it's always possible that circumstances can change the perspective of a situation. For the most part, I don't like absolutes because there always seems to be an exception to the rule. So Bobby goes to do what Hank asked. The cinematography and dialogue really make you think Bobby is about to beat down Caleb, but instead...
What's going on?
Snap, crackle, pop, pops. There goes your basket.
Cut that out, Bobby.
Keep away.
Jim and Lila don't take too kindly to Bobby's new behavior.
Your son is out of control.
Well, he must really like you a lot.
He's got a funny way of showing it.
Yep, Bobby's got a lot of spirit, all right.
If you're trying to compare Bobby to our Caleb, you're way off base. Caleb has a precocious sense of adventure. Bobby is just a troublemaker.
The only vice that cannot be forgiven is hypocrisy. The two bad parents find themselves at an impasse. They created an environment where a child can do whatever they want as long as the parent isn't willing to punish them. So if they want the torment on themselves to stop, they have to realize the mistakes of that environment.
Caleb, please don't ride your bike on Mr. Hill's lawn. I mean it, son. Get off the grass.
Just look at their reaction. Lila acts like Jim just beat her kid. You can tell these parents never put their foot down with this boy before. The most unrealistic part of this episode is the fact that Caleb listened. A kid who's been spoiled for that long would take some time to adjust to listening to authority. And that was Hank's bully. Thanks, I hate it. Admittedly, it wasn't as bad as Miss Wakefield, since it has an entertaining B story. Hank's neighbors support him instead of chastise him, and the episode ultimately sides against Caleb's actions. Still, it's just not fun to watch, mainly because you know this kid is obviously in the wrong here, but the characters, specifically the cops and the parents, ignore logic to make the plot happen. There are a couple of funny and likable moments, and Bobby getting revenge for Hank is extremely therapeutic, but there's just so much frustration here, I never enjoy revisiting this one. This is another one of those episodes where I wasn't planning on getting on my soapbox, but I found a reason to while watching it. I'd be remiss not to talk about the topic staring me in the face. As menacing as Caleb was, he was not the problem of the episode. The problem was Jim and Lila. As someone who doesn't have any kids and doesn't plan on having some anytime soon, that makes me an expert on parenting.
That's a fact.
And as an expert on parenting, I think I speak for everyone when I say, discipline your freaking kids. Adolescents are new to this world. They look to adults to teach them the proper behavior. If you let kids get away with treating people awfully, you're enabling their behavior and sending them the message that they can treat people any way they please. Like, I actually appreciate Jim and Lila for at least trying to
Their lifestyle choices.
Sheila, our husbands are all so clean and neat. My Randy irons his clothes and even has pedicures.
My Steven shaved his chest and his balls. Ooh, I love it. And they like to talk about their feelings now and drink wine and decorate the house.
Their lifestyle choices signaled a rejection of the notion that masculinity required a lack of concern for personal appearance. By exploring their feminine side in these ways, metrosexuals not only redefined the boundaries of modern masculinity, but also led to broader societal conversations about gender expression, self-presentation, and...
Randy Marsh. Has a character in TV history ever undergone a transformation like Randy? Over the course of 23 seasons of South Park, Randy has gone from a simple father and geologist to an obsessive weed farmer who literally caused the ongoing pandemic. A truly wild evolution. But honestly, if you follow Randy's journey over these 23 seasons, the funny thing is that this development actually feels really natural and earned. He didn't just become an obsessive oaf one day, they slowly introduced certain quirks to Randy's personality, and those quirks evolved and developed over time. Randy went from being a moderately utilized secondary character to arguably the star of the entire show, and while there are some people who take exception to Randy's presence at the forefront of South Park these days, I think the journey itself is a fascinating one. So let's comb over 23 seasons worth of the man with absolutely no integrity and explore the evolution of Randy Marsh.
Oh, hey, fuck you.
Johnny, that cartoon just cursed.
Tariq, we did this bit on my last video.
Talk about the podcast.
Cartoons That Curse is a podcast I host with my good friend Toon Rev Tariq, where we talk about all of our favorite adult animated series one season at a time. We've been talking about Futurama, and we'll probably be talking about South Park at some point. So make sure to check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, or watch the video version here on YouTube. Thank you.
Huh. I don't know. Maybe I'll drink a few more beers and see where the party takes me.
Randy's first appearance comes in the third episode of the series, Volcano, though it wasn't yet revealed that he is Stan's dad. He's introduced as the town geologist who ultimately saves the town from an erupting volcano. All things considered, he's a pretty normal and competent dude in this first appearance. He alerts the mayor about the volcano eruption, finds a solution, and executes it. Although, he does burn down Denver in the process. While Randy is present in many episodes of South Park over the first 8 seasons or so, there are really only a handful of episodes that bring Randy to the forefront of the conflict, and often that is through his son Stan. That being said, they do start to set up some traits that end up defining Randy pretty substantially later on. In episode 212 Clubhouses, Randy and Sharon decide to get a divorce after fighting incessantly.
Don't interrupt me. You always interrupt me when I talk. Can't you see that
I don't interrupt you.
This isn't really portrayed as anything overly dramatic, it's mostly played for laughs, exaggerating the types of things that happen when a couple gets divorced. We see Sharon immediately move on to a new man, while Randy gets a nice new convertible and starts partying, quickly taking to single life, but this is mostly portrayed from Stan's point of view. While the episode is mostly parodying the effects of divorce, this would be sort of a small hint at Randy's obsessive personality that would be showcased later in this life, but this is mostly portrayed from Stan's point of view. While the episode is mostly parodying the effects of divorce, this would be sort of a small hint at Randy's obsessive personality that would be showcased later. In the end, the two of them of course get back together. In 302's Spontaneous Combustion, we start to see a sort of proto-Randy, a solid example of some things that the show would start to do with Randy later on, though it's still not a huge focus. When citizens of South Park start to spontaneously combust, Randy is tasked with finding out why, since he's apparently the town's only scientist. The sequences where Randy is doing research are pretty classic. They just show him mixing random chemicals in the basement while he brainstorms. That's pretty classic. I said that already. But funny enough, Randy does figure out what's causing the spontaneous combustion.
Kenny combusted because he held his farts in for too long.
You mean all we have to do is fart and we won't explode?
Exactly.
And he literally wins a Nobel Prize for this discovery and solution, which he is then stripped of when the farting solution causes way more problems than it solves. On paper, pretty classic Randy. In execution, relatively subdued compared to what we've gotten used to. 308's Two Guys Naked in a Hot Tub is a really funny episode, but honestly, it starts to explore Randy's fears and regrets in ways the show hadn't yet. Randy actually laments his lack of freedom that comes with his life as a family man.
I love having a family and all. I just miss being able to party, drinking and socializing and experimenting with all kinds of different things.
I'll touch more on this aspect of Randy's fears later, because for now it's mostly used as an entry point for Randy to, alright, what's the monetization friendly way to say this? Pleasure himself in front of Gerald, and then get really insecure that somebody's going to find out. 408 Something You Can Do With Your Finger feels like a really good early example of some of Randy's weirder quirks and interests being revealed. Randy is absolutely furious that Stan is in a boy band, and his attitude towards the whole thing is really funny. It feels like they were starting to feel out a lot of the fun traits that they could roll with later in the show for Randy. We learned that when Randy was 18 years old, he too was in a boy band, Ghetto Avenue Boys, and he was wildly successful for a year of his life. Unfortunately, the music industry spit him out as quickly as it ate him up.
Because all the fame, the money, the women, all it did was build me up so that I could be knocked down harder than anybody in the world.
Honestly, I think this line here is actually really revealing, and the show slowly starts to paint a picture of this sad, regretful father who's afraid that his best days are behind him. These aren't the only episodes in early South Park that feature Randy heavily, but they are the ones that sort of individualize him. He still does plenty of other weird, quirky stuff throughout this era of South Park, but honestly, for a huge chunk of the other episodes, it's the entire town that goes along with these weird, quirky situations. Randy is often just a part of a bigger mob that's partaking in these strange events. Outrage about Chin Pokemon's effect on kids? Randy's there. Civil War reenactment? Randy. Becoming zombified by Ritalin? Randy's there too. He sort of leads the charge in leaving the church and becoming atheists, which a lot of people end up doing in this episode, and also starts shitting out of his mouth. South Park embracing the metrosexual in this episode, and also starts shitting out of his mouth. South Park embracing the metrosexual lifestyle? Oh, you know Randy's there.
It's super fabulous. Would you like some Shiraz?
He's at the forefront of the pro/anti-war conflict in I'm a Little Bit Country. He becomes obsessed with Walmart when the town builds one. He convinces the whole town to double down when they try to win South Park back from the casino.
Stan, okay? You just don't understand the fine points of gambling. You're never supposed to stop when you're on a winning streak.
There are honestly countless examples of Randy going along for the ride with the other citizens of South Park. A major aspect of the show has always been the town of South Park itself getting really caught up in ridiculous conflicts. And usually when Randy was a part of them, he was sort of just our window into the townspeople. He wasn't necessarily a standout. Like in A Little Bit Country, yeah, he's one at the forefront of the anti-war protests, but he's mostly just representing half of the town. There's nothing inherently Randy about his actions in the episode. He's just our access point into this side of the conflict. Though episodes like My Future Self and Me do start to show off some of Randy's quirks through some of these town-wide situations. And some episodes maybe put a tad more of a focus on Randy, even though it's a town-wide conflict. Like when the Walmart moves into town.
Dad, you're a geologist.
I'll make less money, sure, but as long as I buy everything at Walmart, it'll all even out.
But overall, these early seasons of South Park primarily showcase Randy as a slightly more prominent South Park citizen, and not nearly as much as an individual. But in season 9, one episode would change that forever.
I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America, huh? Isn't this America?
Episode 905, The Losing Edge, is, in my opinion, a perfect episode of South Park. I mean, I could go on for days about this episode. It balances a hilariously clever and subversive conflict for the kids with a gut-busting Randy-focused subplot, but for this video, let's just talk about how this episode completely shaped the future of Randy Marsh. In this episode, Randy becomes obsessed with getting drunk and fighting other dads at Stan's baseball games. In fact, it totally becomes its own sport for him. The pride that Randy feels for beating up these other dads is immeasurable. It's possibly the thing that he's most proud of accomplishing in his entire life.
I worked hard, believed in myself, and now I'm gonna be fighting in the state championship game.
I think this is actually a really natural evolution from what we've learned about Randy. Those fears that he talked about in the hot tub, his insecurities about life passing him by. This is seemingly the first instance of Randy embracing something new that is just for him. Something he is invested in that is completely his own, and an accomplishment no less. This also marks another important occasion, one of the first times that Sharon starts to get super fed up with Randy's bullshit, which would come into play later. Oh yeah, and on top of all this, the episode showcased that Randy is absolutely fucking hilarious.
You want a piece of me? Because I'm pretty sick of your goddamn mouth.
What do you want to do, huh?
Look, Randy was funny before this, but by showcasing him in these elevated, drunken, ridiculous states, they were able to convey a performance for Randy that they hadn't before, and I think it unlocked something special for the show. Something they maybe didn't realize that they actually had until now. Randy is comedy gold, and from here on out, he became a much more prominent character on South Park. He was still used very often as our townspeople surrogate, so when the town is going through some weird fad or obsession, we would still often see that through Randy. Episodes like You Have Zero Friends saw him get really caught up in the Facebook fad.
Well, so, are you gonna add me as a friend?
He had a hilarious role in Night of the Living Homeless.
Look, Glenn, we're safe!
He's at the forefront of the celebrations when Obama becomes president.
Yeah, Obama! Change! It's change!
He basically leads the town in their weird worshipping of the economy.
Finger pointing gets us nowhere! Steve!
And he took the nationwide queefing conflict to Congress. They also started giving Randy significant subplots in kid-centric stories. One of the most memorable is obviously Make Love Not Warcraft. The focus of this episode is the kid's struggles to play World of Warcraft, but they gave a substantial subplot to Randy trying to play the game as well.
Randy, you working on that sediment analysis?
Not now, Nelson. I just joined a big party of night elves and we're gonna explore the Tower of Azora together.
And this riffs pretty well on those insecurities that we've been seeing slowly surface for Randy as the show goes on. He becomes more and more obsessive over seemingly trivial things, and oftentimes things that are loved by younger generations. Randy is initially confused by World of Warcraft, but quickly gives it a try for himself. Hey, he even saves the day before being killed in front of Stan. Or even episodes like Fantastic Easter Special, where we find out that Randy is a part of the Hair Club for Men, a secret society that keeps the secret of Easter.
With all the frills upon it, I'll be the grandest lady in the Easter parade.
Side note, this is one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. The idea is hilariously Randy, but it's also mostly just the inciting incident for Stan's big Easter adventure. They just start to utilize him in a more foundational supporting role, rather than just part of the town. But the biggest change after The Losing Edge was that we started to get episodes that were basically 100% Randy episodes, and we would usually get at least a couple a season. Even the end of season 9 throws Randy to the forefront of the show again in Bloody Mary, when Randy gets pulled over for drunk driving.
What seems to be the officer problem?
This episode actually deals with Randy's addictive personality, but it also does so in the most Randy way possible. When an AA meeting tells Randy that his alcoholism is a disease, Randy takes this, well, about as far as you'd expect Randy to take it.
This disease is just eating me up! I hate my illness!
After this, we see so many Randy-centric episodes that continue to elevate the Randyisms to a ridiculous degree. Season 11's Apologies to Jesse Jackson shows Randy, well, we all know what Randy does in this episode. Just ludicrous stupidity, and his response to the controversy is equally ludicrous. Season 13's Pinewood Derby is another of my personal favorites, and this is basically just a Randy highlight factory. He's so desperate for Stan to win the Pinewood Derby that he steals a superconducting magnet from the Large Hadron Collider. Because of this, the car literally breaks warp superconducting electric magnet from the Large Hadron Collider. Because of this, the car literally breaks warp speed, leading to first contact with alien life. But because of Randy's complete incompetence, he basically leads the human race down the exact wrong path. In the end, it turns out that the aliens were testing the human race to see if they were worthy of being a part of their intergalactic federation, and Randy's leadership gave them their answer, a resounding no way.
Since you did not return the space cache, your species and your planet is hereby forever blocked off and barred from the rest of the universe.
I mean, to be fair, the entire planet goes along with Randy's awful plan, so it's not all on him, but he did lead the way. In fact, Randy is shown to lead a lot of weird fads. Season 14's medicinal fried chicken is a particularly egregious example of this. When a medical marijuana dispensary opens up in South Park, Randy literally gives himself cancer so that he can get high all the time. Can I show this? I don't know if I can even show this. I guess I'll do some blurring. But Randy also ends up convincing all of his friends in town to do the same thing. This is so funny, but it's...
Ну, молодец. Молодец. Пойдем во вкусвилл пройдемся и домой сразу. Пойдем. Пойдем, зайка.
It's another example of the lengths Randy would go to feed his addictive personality. And the show also goes to great lengths to explore the depths of Randy's insecurities. In the episode More Crap, Randy breaks the world record for largest dump ever taken. He instantly gets competitive about it, and he is so depressed when his record is beaten by Bono. Look, this is absolutely one of the most ridiculous episode premises in South Park history, but you cannot deny that it truly explores Randy on a substantial and meaningful level.
I know that this late in my life I'll never come so close to finally having meaning.
The longer the show continues, the
never comes
Randy on a substantial and meaningful level.
I know that this late in my life I'll never come so close to finally having meaning.
The longer the show continues, the more they explore Randy's regrets and his desires to leave some sort of lasting impact on the world, to have some sort of major success that gives his life the meaning he craves. This idea is also further explored in season 14's Cream Fraiche. I can't say this title without laughing. This episode is where Randy becomes completely obsessed with the Food Network and becoming a celebrity chef. He even starts working at the school cafeteria.
Today we're gonna be making the students my tasty baked ziti with basil and fresh mozzarella.
Damn, remember Chef? I miss Chef. This episode ultimately gives an alternative explanation for Randy's Food Network obsession, but this again illustrates Randy's desire to be something more than what he already is. And this actually comes to a head in an incredible season 15 episode, You're Getting Old. This episode is genius, one of my favorites of the whole show. I know I've said that a bunch already. And Randy's story is very much secondary to Stan's, but it also says a lot about the state of South Park. Honestly, I think I might do a separate video on this episode and its place in South Park history, but for now let's focus on Randy. The episode is specifically about Randy's refusal to admit that life is passing him by. The kids are all into a new music genre called tweenwave, which pointedly sounds like literal shit to Randy and all other adults.
Oh, come on. That music sounds like shit.
No, it's just young and hip, so you don't get it, Sharon.
But Randy will not admit that he isn't hip to the new trends. He falsely claims that he actually loves the music, even though it's abundantly clear that it sounds like shit to him. In fact, he even tries to start performing his own tweenwave music, thinking that this might be his chance to actually make it big as a musician. And the results are, well...
I got a fever, but it's under control.
This is not only hilarious, but it lines up so well with what we know about Randy and his history. Randy was in a boy band at age 18 and tasted success, but that success was short-lived. We learned in the Guitar Hero episode that Randy played guitar and had dreams of being a rock star that never panned out. And through so many of these episodes that we've talked about, Randy has desperately tried to capture some sort of new success in life. But Randy's antics finally catch up to him in his relationship with Sharon, who is just completely fed up with his behavior. And she cites all of these same things that we've been talking about as the reason for this.
You do this all the time! First, you're obsessed with baseball fights. Then you need to play Warcraft. Then you gotta be a celebrity chef.
The two of them argue until they actually get to the root of the issue.
Because I'm unhappy, okay? I've been unhappy for a long time.
Now, this is definitely metatextual and has a lot to do with how Matt and Trey were feeling about the show itself at the time, which again, I'd really like to make a video about, but this also says a ton about Randy as a character. After all, in a lot of ways, Randy is a reflection of Matt and Trey themselves, so it all kind of ties together. The reason that Randy continues to become more bombastic and obsessive and journey down these ridiculous story paths is because he isn't happy with his life, something that has been really well established over the course of the show. This episode actually ends with Sharon and Randy getting divorced. And honestly, the montage set to Fleetwood Mac's Landslide is really emotionally affecting. Okay, maybe the song is just emotionally affecting no matter what, but I love the sequence. And while this episode and its follow-up did sort of put out the idea that the show and its characters needed a change and shouldn't just reestablish the status quo, they sort of throw that idea away for a quick joke.
Get in the car, Stan. Your mom and I are moving back in together.
What?
We worked it out, pal. Surprise!
Which is a really funny moment, admittedly. But even though it seemed like they were going to return back to the status quo, over the following 8 seasons, the show really started to see some major changes. For a few seasons, Randy continues his ridiculous plans as expected. In Broadway Brodown, he becomes obsessed with Broadway musicals, even venturing to write one for himself, which is a little autobiographical for Matt and Trey. In season 16, Randy creates a football replacement sport called Sarcastaball and even becomes the head coach of the Denver Broncos. He buys a Blockbuster Video in the year 2012, thinking that it's his ticket to finally being successful.
And some gifts for the kids too. After all, we're rich now.
This turns into a full-blown Shining parody and Randy nearly kills his family, but it's also just another example of how desperate Randy is to find a new success in his life. In season 17, Randy becomes a mall security guard for Black Friday, initially just planning on using his position to get a better spot in line for Black Friday deals, but eventually becoming fully invested in the massive war that is holiday shopping. But in season 18, the show starts to try something new. Serialization, at least in small doses. This wasn't a fully serialized season, but there were aspects of each episode that continued to cross over through the entire thing. And for Randy in season 18, there was one thing that played out all season long.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I am Lord, yeah, yeah, yeah. Lord, Lord, come in, Lord, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's right, for season 18, Randy was moonlighting as music sensation Lord, all while still working as a geologist. This is definitely Randy's biggest accomplishment, though it seems that it maybe didn't bring him all that much joy since he was sort of pretending to be someone else. In fact, in the middle of the season, he even takes a little break to pursue cock magic, apparently something that he used to do in college. This is another of my favorite episodes. You should go watch it if you haven't seen it. But it appears that Randy's career as Lord was short-lived because in season 19, he's onto all kinds of new ventures. He joins a PC frat, he spearheads the attempts to gentrify parts of South Park so that they can get a Whole Foods.
Yes, it's where the presidential candidate is from. No, hold on. Soda Sopa. We have a soda sopa. The town is completely different.
Interestingly, this was actually a pretty Randy light season, and both seasons 20 and 21 are similar. For season 20, the first truly and fully serialized season, Randy's throughline has a lot to do with his addiction to member berries, basically nostalgia fruit. It ultimately culminates in Randy being sort of zombified and possessed, but this lines up pretty effectively with the addictive tendencies we've seen from him over the entire show. Season 21 has a couple Randy-focused episodes. He has a show called White People Renovating Houses.
I do the construction and practice MMA in my spare time.
He becomes really fixated on canceling Columbus Day, even though he previously was super obsessed with Christopher Columbus.
You have to understand, it was 2013. Everyone was stoked on Columbus back then.
Pretty standard Randy action. Hyperfixations coupled with ridiculous stupidity. It kind of seems like the show was just running through the motions with Randy after a stint as Lord, giving him a few episodes a year and having fun with him. But everything would change in season 22.
Loaded up the kids, took my wife by the arm, and I moved on out to a Colorado farm.
In season 22, Randy gets fed up with his life and the people of South Park, and he moves his family to the valley to become weed farmers. Some people take issue with this development, but it actually makes plenty of sense given what we know about Randy. We know he's been unhappy with his life and is constantly trying to fill that void with new careers and experiences. I mean, he's been a geologist, boy band member, Walmart employee, cafeteria chef, Broadway musical writer, coach of the Denver Broncos, mall security guard, owner of Blockbuster Video, music sensation lord, cock magician, host of White People Renovating Houses, and now, finally, a weed farmer. But this is also something that speaks to his addictive personality. I mean, he's been addicted to gambling, alcohol, heroin hero, weed, internet porn, member berries, crack, and weed again. Season 22 has a lot of fun with Tegrity Farms for this one episode, and then it sort of acts as a minor subplot through line for the remainder of the season. Events take place there, like Man Bear Pig mauling Ned, but there isn't much of a focus on it story-wise until the season finale, Bike Parade. But this season finale, I think, is really important for Randy's development moving forward. Because of the Amazon strike, Randy starts getting a huge amount of traffic through Tegrity Farms, like probably the most success he's ever seen in his life, save for Lord, but we won't count that. And pretty quickly, this goes to Randy's head. He does end up helping the town take down Jeff Bezos by getting everyone stoned enough not to care about the Amazon strike, but chasing down the success leads directly into season 23, which is a different show entirely. And I mean that literally. The South Park theme song is nowhere to be found. Completely replaced by the new Tegrity Farms title sequence. Randy Marsh was now, fully and officially, the star of South Park. The first 6 episodes of the season are literally episodes of Tegrity Farms, and Randy is the main character throughout. But the through line for these episodes is how through selling weed with quote-unquote Tegrity, Randy starts to chase success, and in the process, completely loses all Tegrity. In the first episode of Tegrity Farms, Randy literally bombs the home grow ops of South Park residents because they're taking away his business. In the second episode, he makes a deal with communist China, who uses his weed to plant on protesters. This episode would actually get South Park banned in China. He starts selling plant-based burgers using his leftover product, claiming it's for the environment, but then proceeds to murder an entire herd of cattle because he doesn't know what to do with them. Tegrity Farms is about a man who has achieved success beyond his wildest dreams and completely loses sight of what is right and wrong in the process. The show focuses on Randy for the first 6 episodes of the season before airing the Tegrity Farms quote quote-unquote season finale. But then in South Park's actual season finale, the 10th episode of the season, they run back to Randy to ask for help to get the town in the Christmas spirit. And his solution? To sell everyone weed that is caked in cocaine. That's Tegrity. He even does a line with Santa and Jesus.
Okay, I get it. It's really clean.
And this just continues into the pandemic special. We see Randy showcase probably the least Tegrity yet, revealing that when in China, Randy actually created the coronavirus. I'm not going to show you how though. I'm pretty sure I'll get demonetized. The entire special, he tries to fix the problem, but not because he feels remorse. It's simply because he doesn't want to get caught. No damn Tegrity. The funniest thing about Randy and Tegrity Farms is how he's sort of being used to convey meta commentary to the audience from Matt and Trey. The general response to Tegrity Farms from the fan base has been, please go back to South Park. So basically, Matt and Trey say this in the show through Randy.
You know, is it me, or are people starting to not be that stoked on Tegrity Farms?
But they also sort of mock the fans about it in really funny ways.
Did everyone enjoy the Halloween special?
No, Randy. Only you did.
Oh, well, that was pretty much my target audience anyway.
Even after the vaccination special, which in so many ways resets the show back to the status quo, they still make it clear that Randy isn't done with Tegrity Farms. And honestly, I'm pro Tegrity Farm. platforms. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I'd rather the creators of the show have fun and find creative inspiration than try to force the show to be what it used to be. I don't want a soulless imitation of South Park's classic seasons. I want inspired stories.
Top story. Memphis rapper Tommy Wright III beats a 3-year sentence.
Live at 10. Local rap.
Tommy Wright on the creek with that fucking side out. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Tommy Wright on the creek with that fucking side out. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Tommy Wright on the creek with that fucking side out. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Tommy Wright on the creep. Tommy Wright on the creep. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Kicking it with TW. Kicking it with TW. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Kicking it with TW. Tommy Wright on the creep. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Kicking it with TW. Tommy Wright on the creep. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright on the creep with that fucking side out. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Posse deep is how I creep. Tommy pop the clip into the palm, played it 44. Tommy Wright, I creep at night. Tommy Wright, I creep at night.
Please, motherfuckers ain't stopping me. Coming on the scene with a tummy heel, figure niggas step, but you got something make me rich. Never get the pussy cause it's off limits. Hold run the game when you're claiming it other bitch. Gas up your head like I love you, nigga, no loco, never been me. Coming on the scene with a tummy heel, figure niggas step, but you got something make me rich. Never get the pussy cause it's off limits. Hold run the game when you're claiming it other bitch. Gas up your head like I love you, nigga, no loco, never go for the niggas on my dick. Pimp player, baby, little nigga, never stand till the day I die. You ain't mad as a bitch. Niggas pimpin' hoes, pimpin' niggas too. It's just a game to get in some bad as pocket for the cheese. Dollars to the buses, motherfuckers think I'm loving it, but I'm loving these. Then they drop to their knees, clientele be so bad when I fall up in a place. Be jealous, saying so it's a fake up front. Cash about weed, that a bitch by throw in like a little funky ass in the trunk. Saying all these boys like toys, I ain't going never horn. Since them niggas fucking like they pimp. Try to pimp me, nigga get broke for the end. Cause I gotta go cause I'm mad at bitch. Whole niggas try to play low code, they don't know. I don't give a fuck about no coward assholes. Looking for the two and all the time, getting mad back to back cause it's how they pimp shit go. Keep a nigga for the rat on the side, keep it dough. You ain't know if him Mustang, change her style. Teasing his dick and I'm sick with the shit. Playing so many buckets for the tricks on fire. Talking about a minute, stick your tongue right in it. It's a kiss on my dick. Pimp player, baby, little nigga, never stand till the day I die. You ain't mad as a bitch. Niggas pimpin' hoes, pimpin' niggas too. It's just a game to get in some bad as pocket for the cheese. Dollars to the buses, how the fucking figure ain't a motherfucker pimpin'. All these niggas be jockin' me. To the end, make a cheese, near the green bitch, please, motherfuckers ain't stopping me. Coming on the scene with a tummy heel, figure niggas step, but you got something make me rich. Never get the pussy cause it's off limits. Hold run the game when you're claiming it other bitch. Gas up your head like I love you, nigga, no loco, never go for the niggas on my dick. Pimp player, baby, little nigga, never stand till the day I die. You ain't mad as a bitch. Niggas pimpin' hoes, pimpin' niggas too. It's just a game to get in some bad as pocket for the cheese. Dollars to the buses, please, motherfuckers. Cause ain't stopping me. Coming on the scene with a tummy heel, figure niggas step, but you got something make me rich. Never get the pussy cause it's off limits. Hold run the game when you're claiming it other bitch. Gas up your head like I love you, nigga, no loco, never go for the niggas on my dick. Pimp player, baby, little nigga, never stand till the day I die. You ain't mad as a bitch. Niggas pimping hoes pimping niggas too. It's just a game to get in some bad pocket for the cheese. Dollars to the buses, motherfucker. Niggas on my dick. Pimp player, baby, let nigga never stank it to the day I die. You ain't mad as a bitch. Niggas pimping hoes pimping niggas too. It's just a game to get in some bad pocket for the cheese. Dollars to the buses, motherfuckers think I'm loving it, but I'm loving it. When they drop to their knees, clientele be so bad when I fall up in a place. These jealous assholes, it's a fake up front. Catch about weed, at a bitch, rap, throw in like a little funky ass in the trunk. Playing all these boys like toys, I ain't going nigga horns. Since them niggas fucking like they pimp. Try to pimp me, nigga get broke for the end. Cause I gotta go cause I'm mad at this bitch. Whole niggas try to play low code, they don't know. I don't give a fuck about no coward asshole. Looking for the two and out of time, getting mad back to back cause it's how this pimp shit go. Keep a nigga for the rat on the side, keep it dope. You ain't know a pimp Mustang, train her style. Tease me his dick and I'm sick of the shit. Playing so many buckets, put the tricks on fire. Talk about a minute, stick your tongue right in it. It's a cap that I want and your money too hoe. M-O-N, anyway, I gotta have it, understand, young man, don't come too slow. Games that I play when I speak this fast shit, niggas feeling like they hard when they really soft. Change my voice, tell the trick I wanna fuck him next time, you know he be jacking off. Can't play a player cause the game you tryna play done already been played out my knee. Can't pimp a pimp cause a pimp instead of pimp a fuck a hoe cause this motherfucker shit's too thick. Won't get caught up in the game when I'm serving this player type shit. Can't get out slipped in, don't have a frown in your face when I fall up in this place cause the low coast still pimp.
Bitches got